Hello and welcome. This is Microsoft Flight Simulator and this is the Phoenix Airbus A320. And in today's video I would like to discuss with you GPWS warnings and how to react to them correctly. Now, we've already discussed GPWS warnings briefly in my memory items video, but today I want to go into a bit more depth and tell you exactly which command should trigger a certain response and what that response should be like. Just a big caveat before we get started: the commands we'll be looking at do not include any commands that have to do with terrain. I think the terrain commands are pretty obvious. You are not going to fly into a mountain, hopefully, so you do what we discussed in the memory items. But what, for example, if you hear sink rate or glide slope? What should be the correct response and how does that differ during different parts of the flight? So this is what we're going to be looking at today. It's a bit more theoretical, there's not much I can show you, but hopefully you'll still find it interesting enough to stick around. Okay, then without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so as we are flying over beautiful Japan, let me give you a quick overview of how I approach this subject. So first of all, there are different warnings that the GPWS system can give you, and there are responses that you as the pilot have to perform. Just be aware that these responses are published by Airbus and the manufacturer of the GPWS system, but many airlines actually put in place more restrictive responses, because a lot of airlines usually are not happy with what the authorities come up with and put an additional layer of safety on top of those. So some of the things you may hear are company specific. So to get started, there are essentially three types of reactions that you need to do. One is called flight path adjust, one is called go around consider, and one is called go around perform. So what does that mean? Well, flight path adjust simply means adjust the flight path so that the warning goes away. So this would be, for example, glide slope. If you hear that, that means you're too low below the glide slope, so just pull up slightly, reduce the rate of descent and get back on the glide slope. Go around consider basically means you should consider a go around. It's not mandatory, but maybe something you want to think about. And go around perform simply means you have to do a go around. If you do not do a go around, you fail to follow the procedure, and this would very likely get you a phone call from the safety department. Not something we would like to see. So when should we do what? Well, the way I remember this is essentially there are several warnings you can get. They are sink rate, don't sink, glide slope, too low gear, and too low flaps. We, for the moment, forget about too low gear and too low flaps. We only consider the other ones. I'm gonna explain to you why in a second. So let's start with sink rate. So sink rate means that you are close to the ground and your sink rate is above a certain value, and the aircraft considers this to be unsafe. As you're probably not surprised, the correct response is flight path adjust. So what that means is you should just adjust the flight path to reduce the rate you're sinking. However, there is also a caveat which says go around consider. So both reactions would be valid. But when should you consider the go around? Well, this is where it gets a bit tricky. If you are VMC, so like today here in the sim, we have a beautiful day, we can see everything. Then below 500 feet, you should start thinking about a go around, because you're quite close to the ground I mean, you can see everything. You can still, if you think you can recover it, flight path adjust is okay. But below 500 feet on a nice day, you should consider a go-round. If it is not a nice day and you're in IMC condition, so you cannot see the ground because you're in a cloud or you're in fog, then below 1,000 feet, you should already start thinking about a go-round. So to sum up, if you hear
sink rate,
then just adjust the flight path. Below 500 feet, consider go-round. If you're not visual, below 1,000 feet, consider a go-round. The next warning is
glide slope,
and glide slope is exactly the same as sink rate. So again, adjust the flight path. If you're visual, below 500 feet, consider go-round. If you're not visual, below 1,000 feet, consider the go-round. The next warning is
don't sink.
Now for don't sink, it doesn't matter if you are above 1,000 feet, below 500 feet, if you're visual or not visual. All it says is adjust the flight path. So, I mean, it doesn't mean it's wrong to do a go-around. You can still, if you really want to, but according to the procedures, it is not necessary. All they want you to do is to adjust your flight path regardless of the situation. And that leaves us with
too low gear, too low flap.
Now these warnings will only come up if you're already very close to the ground, and if you are approaching an airport without the gear extended, or if you don't have selected the correct flap setting. So let's say you want to land with flaps full, but you are still in flaps 2. So this is when that warning would come up. And in this case, there's no discussion. There's nothing with 1,000 feet, 500 feet. Doesn't matter if you're visual or not. You must perform a go-round. And this is why I kept those two to the side, because they're different to all the others. There is no decision for you to make. Too low gear, too low flaps, immediate go-round. No discussion. So let's do a quick summary. This is the way how I remember this. The numbers you need to remember is below 1,000 feet when it's cloudy, below 500 feet when it's clear. When you hear sink rate or glide slope, then you must adjust the flight path, which makes sense. If it's a cloudy day below 1,000 feet, maybe not a bad idea to do a go-round. If it's a beautiful day below 500 feet, maybe not a bad idea to do a go-around. Don't sink, something we hear on the Phoenix A320 all the time. I don't know why, but the GPWS on the Phoenix A320 is constantly telling me don't sink, especially if you fly a circling approach or a visual approach. So because I hear this all the time, there's no need to even consider go-around. We'll just adjust the flight path. So that's the least restrictive one, and it doesn't matter if you're visual or not. The last two, too low gear, too low flaps, are always a go-round because you essentially screwed up the configuration of the aircraft. And this is how I remember this. These are memory items, so you must have them in your head at all times. I mean, if you imagine if you come in to land and all of a sudden you hear too low gear, you must know what to do. You can't just start opening your books trying to figure out, you know, what's the correct procedure. So these are things you need to memorize, you need to have them in your head. Like I said, some other companies may have slightly different procedures. These are the procedures I've been told to follow. These are the ones I'm tested on, and these are the ones I have memorized. So I wanted to discuss this with you because I have never seen a video actually going into a bit more detail what to do if those warnings pop up, and I thought it might be quite interesting. Okay, and that's already the end of the video. Okay, and as we come into land here, I would like to bring this video to a close. It was a bit of a shorter one, but I thought it's an interesting topic and something I haven't seen being discussed anywhere else. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next one. Until then, all the best. Bye bye.